These are the times that try men's souls. And many people will shrink from the service of their country at these times. We are entering a new world. Last night, I'm watching CNN and Anderson Cooper. And Anderson Cooper is he's standing there and, he's wearing the flak jacket and everything else. And he's like, hey, things are really tough in the bombing. And I'm like, wonder where he is. He's in Gaza. He's in Gaza City. And he's talking about how bad the Israeli bombings have been on the people in the Gaza Strip. And then, Dick Lemon or whatever his name is, he gets on and he's like, Anderson, hang on just a second. We've got somebody else that we want to talk to. We go to now the head of the PLO. I'm like, am I watching Al Jazeera? Or am I watching American television? I've never seen anything like it. It's amazing how these Jews control the media, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're so clever by having, like CNN, use the Palestinian footage that has been proven by the New York Times to be false. They're so clever in using the propaganda photos of the Egyptian president coming over to the Gaza Strip and kissing the forehead of that dead child that was killed by Hamas. According to the New York Times, that right-wing rag. And yet, CNN runs it like, oh, look at this kid is killed by the Israelis. No. Killed by Hamas. And yet, it's happening on our television. The Israelis don't have a prayer. You don't have a prayer. If this is really where you're going, I am happy to say that there's a way for you to help if you are like me and you are seeing what's happening. I mean, we are living in amazing times. We're living in a time where the whole world can change, and the whole world can change for the better. I happen to believe that Egypt is on a suicide mission. I happen to believe that Syria is on a suicide mission. Jordan, unfortunately, is going to be a casualty. This is not something new. I told you this, 2 years ago now? I love this from the New York Times. This is the front page of the New York Times today. We're in New York. Yay. So, reading the New York Times today. Here are the headlines. Gaza clash escalates with deadliest Israeli strike. Now, to give you some perspective, in the last how many years? 8 years, Pat? The number of rockets that have been launched by Hamas?
No, it's the last 3 years.
Oh, sorry, the last
3 years.
Wow. The last 3 years.
8,000 rockets.
8,000. Now, let's give you some perspective on that. In the last 3 years, Hamas has launched more rockets into Israel than Germans launched into London during the entire war, World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how awful it was? Remember, I don't know if you heard any of the reports this weekend, what's happening in Israel, but you're hearing the sirens. That was when Mr. and Mrs. America, this is what's happening in London. And you'd hear the sirens. You're still hearing that. But nobody's reporting what Hamas has done to Israel is more than what Germany did to London. And Hamas has done it in 3 years. 8,000 rockets. And meanwhile, NBC News is on this weekend saying, yeah, but Mr. Ambassador, we all know those rockets really don't do any damage. Excuse me? How many people have died? How did they even get away with something like that? Answer? I've worked in the mainstream media. I've done a lot of things. I've taken on a lot of fierce enemies. I have spoken truth to power at the highest levels. But there is nothing in my career that has been harder than saying the truth that I stand with Israel. That Israel is not the aggressor. There is nothing more difficult. It is phenomenal to see it in action. When we did Agenda at CNN, the Agenda Exposed, you wouldn't believe the hoops that we had to climb through to be able to show you the exact videotape coming from the Arab world. The propaganda against the Israelis, the Jews, and the Americans.
Yeah, of all the things we talked about, that was probably the most difficult to talk about.
Same thing at Fox. The most, would you agree?
Yeah, probably. Well, one of the two or three, I would say. Definitely the top at CNN, though.
Do you need me to remind you?
No, I'm just thinking of some other things that were.
Yes. There was nothing more dangerous for our career than to stand on the side of Israel. And everything that we did over at CNN on the Agenda show had to be cleared through the Arab desk. Remember that? It's incredible. So you're getting the Arab perspective when you're watching the mainstream media. Now, New York Times, Gaza clash escalates with deadliest Israeli strike. So they're focusing on how many the Israelis have killed instead of the other way around. Right below that, brigades that fire on Israel are showing new discipline. That one is interesting, isn't it? I love that. They're showing new discipline. They're only firing their rockets, but they're trying really hard to not fire them into apartment buildings. Oh. How about this one? Front page of the New York Times. An emboldened Hamas makes new demands. Netanyahu holds fast. Cairo. Emboldened by the rising power of Islamists around the region, the Palestinian militant group Hamas demanded a new Israeli concession. I'm sorry. Could you read that one to the feeble-minded and Bill Kristol? How about this one? Investors rush to beat threat of higher taxes. Business owners and investors are rapidly maneuvering to shield themselves from the prospect of higher taxes next year, a strategy that is sending ripples across Wall Street and broad areas of the economy. Quote, in my 30 years of practice, I've never seen such a flood of desire and action to transfer a business and cash out. That's the front page of the New York Times. Oh, there's another one here. Muscular body image lures boys into the gym and obsession. The world is on fire. The economy is tanking. And what do Americans, what are they concerned about? Their body image. Their body image. We did something kind of controversial over the weekend. And I'm going to continue that controversy here. But we believe that those who stand with Israel are on the right side. I don't know what happens to those people, but they're on the right side. That's what I believe. When we started Mercury One, one of the things that we had in its umbrella and its charter was Israel. I found out on Friday, I got a desperate call. They can't afford the planes to continue to run, and they can't afford the pilots to stay out by the planes. Do you remember when we were in the Cold War, they had to have the planes running all the time? Well, it's very expensive. At Ramat David Air Force Base, we found out they had that need. So we wire transferred some money over to them. The planes are running, and the pilots have a place to stay right there at the planes because of Mercury One. Also, we found out through Exodus Israel that there is a need because the military has been sent up into places that it's actually cold. You never think of Israel being cold, but it is. And there's snow and everything else in parts of Israel. Well, when you're part of the Israeli army you have to dress yourself. And so there's a lot of people, in fact, a lot of our friends have had their sons and daughters called up, and they never thought they'd be called up, and they were called up and called into service. And a lot of people don't have any winter gear, and they're up in these cold regions without a coat or anything. And so we wrote another $25,000 check and had winter gear sent to them. Also, week before last, Tanya and I and Mercury One donated $50,000 to the Asaf. How do you say the last name of this? Joe, are you there? How do you say it?
Asaf Horafeh?
Asaf Horafeh, yeah. Now, this is a children's hospital I told you about last week. They can't do the children's hospital thing. They were going to expand their children's hospital, and it's going to have to wait because now they need a bomb shelter for the patients. And they serve Christians, Muslims, Jews, everybody. This is aid. Then we also buy a medical truck, kind of an emergency, almost a emergency ICU truck as well.
Yeah, we're in the process of making that payment to purchase that.
So we're doing everything that we can and putting our money where our mouth is, and also because of Mercury One in the general fund, we have taken some steps to move some of that money over to the people who need it there. If you are like-minded and you believe that our government is on the wrong side, our media is on the wrong side, and these people are truly alone. Truly alone. If that's you, would you go to mercury1.com right now, .org, mercury1.org right now, and you'll see it's an Israel button, and it'll say donate to Israel, and all that money will go directly to organizations like this. And warning, we're going to come under attack like crazy. Because whenever we do something and we know it's right, when we do something and we come under attack immediately, we know that it's right. And I know this is right. Go to mercury1.org and donate now.